Alrighty, chaps. I want to talk about B2B versus B2C today and about my decision to focus exclusively on B2C startups through my product studio. And even beyond that, when I'll be working on independent projects, I'll probably be focusing on B2C startups. I want to talk about my reasons, about my rationale for this, especially in light of how most of the advice given to startups is that because one of the key reasons why people do startups is they want a disproportionate amount of wealth, huge ROIs, right? And B2B startups, they tend to increase the odds substantially. And a lot of startup founders don't think along these lines. A lot of startup founders do think along these lines, but to some degree, it's about maximizing your looking at the margins, looking at where you can get the alpha. Every single edge adds up, and so a lot of founders take on B2B startups, and even though they might not have a natural predilection for it, a natural love or passion for that industry. What's up? Oh my gosh, I gotta talk about this. It's a real quick digression, but bear with me, bear with me. Brian Chesky, he's been in the news lately. So he delivered a really good, well, I haven't listened to talk, but apparently, according to the people who listened to it, a really inspiring talk at YC, talking about founder mode. Well, that was one of the topics. And then PG, he wrote an article about that. And it's all run of the mill stuff, nothing truly earth shattering in that. It's just meant to be one of those things which reinforces people's belief in themselves. And for founders, especially the breed, they could certainly do with a lot of self reinforcing material just because of the nature of the challenge they're taking on, right? And where they're going to doubt themselves every step of the way just because of the magnitude of the challenges in front of them. So yeah, so he delivered this talk, and PG writes an essay about that. As you know, with PG essays, they're going to get to the front page of Twitter inevitably, and that happens. And so people are talking about founder mode, people are making memes about founder mode, all fun stuff. It was really hilarious. And then someone, probably combs through hundreds of hours, well, maybe not hundreds, but hours and hours of Ranchesky's insights about founder mode, about the nature of being a founder CEO. And so someone finds this clip from around 10 months back where he's on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and he's talking about founder mode and how it just differs substantially and materially from a manager mode. And how, for example, because you're both parent to your baby, be it a baby, well, when you're both biological parent, be it a baby, a real human baby, or a startup, which for startup founders is like the baby, then you care about that a lot more deeply than other people would naturally, right? It's like come through you. You poured your heart, your sweat, your blood into it. You put everything into it. So you are going to be a lot more invested in seeing this thing flourish. And that tends to be one of the biggest reasons why founder CEOs tend to be a great breed of CEOs. Another reason that he mentioned was the fact that you are the one you're the father of this, you're the parent of this child, right? Which means that you got the permission from the board, from stakeholders, from your team to actually be able to make those calls, and some of those, especially those calls which might not seem popular at the moment. And those are the kinds of calls that can make you increase your edge, right? Increase your alpha, because it was obvious and competitors would be doing it. So inevitably, the decisions that you're going to make to actually to improve your position in the market, to get more market share, to increase the monetizability of your proposition. Also, decisions that are going to have to come from a place of unpopularity, are going to have a lot of resistance attached to it. But if you're the founder, because you build a thing, it's almost like people can respect you more because they can trust. And in a lot of cases, founders, because they've been drinking a lot of their Kool-Aid, which we all do, right? I mean, this is human nature. A lot of founders, they just drink more of it than is warranted. And so they might just become blinded to the biases that other people might be noticing. But in a lot of cases, that is not true, right? They can really make those decisions. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's WhatsApp decision, Instagram decision, Meta decision, open source decision, right? These are decisions that only a founder CEO could have taken. I mean, we can go through a laundry list of such decisions. But the broader point is that only a founder CEO could have taken those kinds of decisions. And there was a third point that I do not quite remember, but it was adjacent to these 2 points, right? Anyways, in that conversation, Franceschi's doing this a lot, which is when I was doing this, I was reminded of that moment, and someone tweeted out people had been sharing that clip, and someone commented or retweeted this tweet saying that I'm gonna share this lesson with my kids who are startup founders, but I don't know if I can because he seems to be on some drugs, cocaine, and so Franceschi he responds to I think he literally responds to this tweet saying that I was diagnosed with pneumonia after this, and some people are now making fun of it, and it's just the memes that came out of it, but oh my gosh, oh so hilarious. And the funniest bit was the last All-In episode where it's called Open. Jason he's talking about founder mode, and he disappears for a second, and David Sachs asks the guys, that was this guy gone? He comes back like this, and he's got white stuff over here. You gotta see it. Oh my gosh, it was so hilarious. Anyways, yeah, so the founder mode has just been, it's just taken over the Twitter world. Yeah, okay, so we just talked for 6 minutes without ever getting into the B2B versus B2C. Wow, should I be cutting this? I don't think I have to. Well, let's just keep it like this. Right, so B2B versus B2C, right? So when you look at B2B startups, what are you trying to do, right? You're trying to make some operations more efficient. You're trying to save time, cut costs, right? Those are 3 things that you're trying. And actually, even when you're trying to make operations more efficient, the 2 things that you're trying to do for a business are cutting costs or saving time, right? And both those things matter the most to a business, like the direct financial indications and KPIs attached to those 2 indicators. So this is obviously very important, like the critical indicators. But at the end of the day, and another part of this is that when you're building for B2B, for enterprises, you're not going to be able to have a ton of your personal taste, a ton of your personal preferences into it, because you're trying to solve a very particular problem for businesses, right? And so you're trying to think of it this way. Let's just imagine this metaphor. So there's a hole, and you need to fill that hole. There's a gap, and you need to fill that gap. But the nature of that gap for businesses, it's so similar that you had to almost create this box, and then you'll have to put this box, and the business will buy this box, and they'll put this box into the workflow to improve their workflow, to decrease costs, to improve operations, right? And so there's not going to be a lot of room for your own personal taste, your mission. I mean, you can't really look at business B2B startups, right? Even the big $10 billion ones. Like the missions are not really the kinds of missions that can really inspire people a ton. And then you compare that to missions of the Facebooks and the Googles, making information more accessible, connecting people. Those are the emotions that can really tug at our heartstrings, right? Because at the deepest level, we can use the Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a framework here. At the deepest level, there's certain fundamental things, right? And consumer startups, for example, the connection part is taking care of that particular ladder, that particular level rather. Then there are certain things, certain tools that help us with, self-actualization. I don't think we've got anything in particular. I want to build something in that domain, but I don't think we've got how would that. Okay, I don't want to get into how that would look like. I've got some ideas, but let's leave that aside for the moment. So that's another reason, right? I want to build something that really inspires me, or inspires my team, and inspires people who see our mission, right? So that's one part of it. Second is I have certain ideas, certain personal preferences about what that kind of a app or what that kind of a device could look like. And I want my own personal taste. It's not like I've got the best taste in the world, but I've got ideas around how I could. It's not so much about me, it's about, having these apps have a personality of their own, right? Initially, obviously, that personality is going to come through the founding team, through the decisions that you make. I think that is important. Otherwise, with a B2B startup, it's almost like a commodity. Sure, some B2B startups can have modes like network. I don't think network effects would be very much a mode for most B2B, but I haven't thought too deeply about B2B startups, but sure, they can have their modes, right? But these are still going to be commodities at the end of the day, especially in the age of AI, where the development cycles have just become so much more rapid. where at the end of the day, it's the personal taste that's going to matter, that's going to make the difference, that's going to be a difference maker. But that's another reason why. Then I've got the fact that that problems I want to solve for myself. Now problems, I want to build business, right? I want to build this. One of the few business things I want to build is I'm building a research suite. I wouldn't really put in the category of a business B2B. Sure, we'll be targeting B2B. So the way to think about this is who's your target audience and who are you building, who are you selling to, right? So with research suite, even consumers could actually be using it, even though you might, in terms of selling the thing, in terms of the marketing, you might be focused more on the enterprise side and the research institution side. You might still be open to, and you might still be looking forward to having a ton of consumer users. So that's another reason, right? And then we've got the fact that another reason is that in a way, all B2B startups, they are consumer startups, right? They might be layers removed from it, but they are, at the end of the day, they are serving consumers. We are doing everything a business does is serving consumers. Let's take the most extreme example for B2B startup, which is layers and layers removed. Maybe an energy utility company, right? So that utility company is going to sell energy to some intermediary company, and that's going to sell energy to some other company, and then that's going to sell electricity to maybe the end user company, right? But at the end of the day, that company is selling its product to consumers. So it's just about how far removed are you from the stack, from how far removed are your layers from the consumer. I want to go straight to the consumer. I want to speak with them. I want to, build for them. And that's going to become ever more relevant in what we are building, the world that we are building, right? Because the world we are moving to, rather. Well, the world we are building and moving to, because what we are building is what we are moving towards. So what's going to happen, my prediction, is that every company is going to have their own B2B tools. If an AGI agent can build your own, and this is what we're going to do with Elinity. I don't want to belabor this point, but I do want to talk about this. So I was reading a report about Klarna CEO removing their Salesforce subscriptions and their payment providers, and they're going to build these tools in-house, which sounds like a challenge. But Klarna, which has got hundreds and hundreds of employees, it thinks it's not going to be a serious challenge, and the savings and the control is going to be well worth it. And I think that's just going to start this. I'm sure that other companies will start doing it. Shimad Palapatia, he's got this 80-90 incubator where he promises to build something at 90% cheaper cost by focusing on 80% of the features that are the most essential, and that are the power features. Right. So, my prediction. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, there we go. My prediction is that that's just going to become the norm, right? Where more and more businesses are going to choose to build their own internal tools. So, I mean, this is more of a reason of practical considerations. I didn't even get to the practical considerations when I decided to focus almost exclusively on consumer things, consumer applications. But this is a very pertinent problem for a lot of B2B startups. They're just not going to be able to compete. B2B startups are going to get wiped off the map. Because almost every single tool that you might need, you're going to have this AGI agent do that thing for you. So you can think of this AGI agent being housed in the software, and you can just say to the software, which is connected to all your data flows, all your data lakes, every single part of your workflow, and you can just sell it that, okay, give me this thing, or get me these APIs, or scrape this data for me, right? It's going to be able to do everything. It's going to be able to create the solutions in real time. Or if not, it can retrieve some of the individual components of these solutions and then bring them together to create the full-fledged solution that you might need. So you're going to see that happen a lot more. That's going to trickle down. That's obviously going to start happening at the larger companies. And with these larger companies, we are talking of companies with hundreds or even thousands of employees. They spend a significant chunk of money on their SaaS, on the B2B applications. So they are going to be, for them, if we get to this age, it's going to be well justified for them to be bearing those upfront costs of developing these AGI agents at the start. Well, not developing, but setting up these AGI. I don't think it would really require setting up these agents. Sure, you obviously you want this AGI agent to, learn how to work with your company's directives, protocols, systems, etc. But I think that's going to, again, if you're talking about the AGI, it's going to be pretty good at, figuring out how these different things connect with each other. One of the critical reasons I decided to take this leap into the B2C world is that I want to start by scratching my own itch, right? There are certain things, there are quite a few things that, okay, there are not a ton of things that I want in the world. I'm a very simple man. There are only like a handful of things I want, but there's a list of things I want to see in the world, apps, systems, and, wouldn't it make more sense for me to spend my time on building these to scratch my own itch, and then hopefully some of these are good enough. Give you the best example is a personalized AI tutor, right? So I want to learn in my, I'm not as motivated as I should be in learning. Well, nowhere close to. My learning is very disorganized. It lacks context. Like, okay, I need to find that node to be able to give me this insight. But even working is connected. But let's just focus on learning. So there are many problems with the way I learn. Problems related to my motivation, my organization, and there are problems related to how I interface with the material, right? Now, if I can build the world's best AI tutor, which I'll start working on, then that would scratch my own itch. And then I'm going to have kids sometime in the future, and then they would use that tool. So I'm not just building for myself, but I'm also building for my children. And obviously, then there are levels of success, right? So success level 1 would be, the 0th success level would be where I'm using it and I'm happy with it, right? Even if no one else wants to use it, that's fine. I'm using it and it actually does what I wanted to do at the start. When I wrote out the product brief, when I wrote out the specs, I had a certain vision. With the personalized tutor, what I wanted to do is understand my learning style, understand the context around, and learning shouldn't be looked at in isolation. So this agent that helps you learn, this tutor that helps you learn, would also be connected to other parts of you. And humans we need to have a holistic vision with this, right? So we want to have something that can really understand the whole context of you to help you learn better. For example, if you're stressed, maybe it's not the best time, and because it would be in tune with that fact, it probably wouldn't be the best time for it to suggest that, okay, Suraj, learn this complex thing or read this paper, and then I'm going to test you on that, right? So maybe that wouldn't be the best time for me to do that, for it to suggest. But then there'll be times where I've got a Neuralink. Actually, I'm probably not going to have Neuralink anytime soon, but I've got this Whoop kind of a band, and so I can check, and then it can tell me that, okay, Suraj, you're really happy in this alpha mode where your learning efficacy and your learning productivity is going to be 10x your usual self, your usual amount. So just dive right in. Just spend the next couple of hours learning, right, reading a paper, and then I'm going to make it a very interactive, very engaging, a very immersive process. And that would be a ton of fun, right? I want to build that. I want to build a fun learning companion that really understands me, helps me learn the most effective way possible. So that's level 1 of success. Level 2 would be, helping people in my circle, having them use it. Level 3 would be people beyond that, like a few hundred, a few thousand users. And level 4 would be obviously some level of widespread adoption. Now, for different applications, that number would be different. I'm building this connection application. And for that, by the way, we are going to build almost everything in-house because I do want to be in control of everything. That was the point I was trying to raise. And then because I have a script today, I'm literally, saying doing this without a script, which is fun in a way, but then you just tend to jump from point A to point B without giving closure to point A, and then that just becomes a bit uncohesive. So that's a problem, but we'll get to that. What was I? Okay, give me a second. Yeah, so at the end of the day, if I build these products, there are certain products I want to build for myself, certain apps, certain systems, certain things like an AI personal assistant, an AI conversationalist. That's something I really want to have. And I mean, an AGI you can converse with. Talking with people, certain kinds of people, it's obviously a ton of fun. Like, if you're talking with your friends and your family, that's a special type of a thing. It's got special feelings involved, right? But I think the category of conversations that we'll be able to have with an AI, with an AGI, that will have worldwide context and local context on you, complete local context on you. I think that category of conversation will be so different and will be so powerful that I think that's going to be, even if people have very rich social lives, very rich relationships, they're still going to, well, I expect a certain small, so not, maybe not a small, but certain subset of people to want that. I'm certainly one of those, right? And I've actually got the name of this project is Sophia, love of knowledge. And yeah, so I'm going to design Sophia to just be the best conversationalist. Like I can just have she can be witty, she can be, I don't know why I said she. I mean, it's Sophia, obviously. I'll have to think about why I need her to be a she. I guess I can make an educated guess on why I would want. Most of science fiction where we get this idea of having a personal AI assistant, most of these have been females. And the reasons for those are pretty obvious. The big aberration, the biggest exception was Jarvis, which has been the inspiration for many people. It was the inspiration for Mark Zuckerberg when he embarked on this project. I remember reading about this Facebook post of his where he was talking about his year-long project. I think it was a New Year post or something of that sort of birthday post. And he was saying that my goal for the next year, for the next few months, is for building a Jarvis-like system. So this is a while back. I mean, he probably has a Jarvis-like system. That makes you wonder, right? What are these AI labs cooking that is only privy to the top level researchers that humanity knows nothing about, the rest of humanity? Like how they achieved AGI internally. It's so funny to me because, when Sam Altman was fired, this was the meme. Have they achieved AGI internally? And we wanted to bring it out to the world, and the board didn't want to because they foresaw the kinds of things that could happen, and that was the reason why things just broke up. Achieving AGI internally. What did Ilya see? Yeah, that was a meme. Memes are so funny. Okay, this is not about memes. I don't want to make this about like everything because this was supposed to be about B2B and B2C startups. But I've just been rambling about all sorts of things. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up real nicely. So yeah, I want to build things for myself, right? And at the end of the day, I'm building something for myself. So I've got around 15 to 20 projects in my product studio that I'll be building over the next few years. And even if I get 0 users, because I'm building these for myself, I'll always have that one user. Well, even if I got additionally 0 users, I always have that one user who's the most important user, right? Because I'm building these solutions for myself at the end of the day. Like to help me improve my life, to help me improve my mind, to help me improve my learning rates, my improvement rates, my growth in different areas, my growth in different skills, all sorts of things, right? I mean, the kinds of things that we care about. And that goes back to my point about building consumer applications. You're actually solving these fundamental problems that people have. With consumer applications, as close to the source of the things that people want as possible. Actually, let me wrap it up with this statement because it really brings all of it together. Yeah, so the main reason, I mean, I've just been using so many different words to say the same thing, but the main reason I'm focused more on consumer applications than business applications is that there are certain things that we want in life, right? We've got certain desires, certain drivers, certain states that we want to inhabit, mental states. And what businesses do is enable other businesses, help other businesses who are in the business of catering to getting humans closer to these states and these desires, right? I want to help people get to these desires, right? I want to be as close to source as possible. So my next project, the project I've been working on rather for the last 6-8 months, is Elinity. It solves the problem of connecting people, connecting people deeply, connecting them to the best fit people, and then helping them build great relationships with people in their life, right? Like that is the most fundamental problem that you can think of. Well, one of the most, right? That is so deeply tied to our happiness, which is so deeply the thing that we want the most in life, that you could almost say that if we solve this, we solve happiness, right? And in a way, that would be true for a lot of people. Like, if they've got great relationships, and if they actualize their social potential, their relationship potential, then they are going to be a far happier person that they would have been in any counterfactual situation. So I want to solve that problem. I want to solve the problem of building the best learning companion so people can learn to the heart's desire. Because again, for people who love learning, is one of the greatest sources of joy. Is one of the greatest sources of fulfillment. For people who love building, I'm building this book writing application. Again, it's a great source of one of the greatest sources of fulfillment, right? So I'm gonna be closest to the heart of the problems that humanity faces, like all the things that we want to have, right? Like the states, the desires, the drivers. Yeah, so just building straight for the fundamental problems. For the fundamental, when I say problems, you can construe them as problems, or you can construe them as the obstacles towards, the peak human experience, right? What am I trying to do here? What are you trying to do here? What you're trying to do is build the best life possible. Let's break that down. You want to have these states that you want to inhabit. Could be states of pleasure, fun, joy, excitement, in different combinations, right? For some people, they want to over-index. I shouldn't say over-index, but they probably want to seek more peace and calm rather than the other things. For some people, they're driven to seek more pleasure. They're more hedonistic in nature. There are different things. There are different proportions based on how we've been wired and nature and nurture, right? But that's at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is build a certain life of these states, right? There are certain things that we are driven towards, certain desires that we want to fulfill. And so wouldn't it make more sense for me to just, focus on those things rather than intermediate things? It would. And so here I am, focused on B2C startups. Thank you for your time. I'll see you soon. Cheers.